Okay, my friends. Shalom, shalom. Welcome. Excited to start a new series with you all. Yeah, we're going to get this party started. Very important stuff. We call this the case for Judaism. If anyone wants this in book form, so everything we're going to say here and more is available in a wonderful Jewish best-selling book called The Case for Judaism by yours truly. You're welcome to pick it up on Amazon. All right, so here it goes. Let's jump in. All right, so if we want to begin this conversation of Judaism, I like to begin philosophically from the beginning. Let me just give you a little background about where I'm coming from, right? Because this is really my story. This is really a result of my own personal search. When I was growing up, and maybe some of you guys can relate to this, when I was growing up, anything I ever heard about Judaism was a lot about the what's of Judaism and the hows of Judaism, what to do, how to do it. But like, why on earth should I be involved in this? Why on earth should I care? Why on earth might this make a difference in my life? Somehow those whys were always passed over. And so growing up, this bothered me. And so when I got older, I wanted to check some of this Jewish stuff out for myself. So I came here to Israel. I'm in Israel right now. Came here to Israel, started searching things out. And this started out as a philosophical pursuit, but ultimately evolved in something a little more personal, a little more deeper, a little more, spiritual. And this is, it started out with these philosophical questions. And then as I got the answers, my questions got deeper. My questions got more nuanced. My questions got more to the spiritual side of things. And that's when I got more into the Hasidic teachings and more into Kabbalah and all of that. But first and foremost, there was questions of truth over here. Why should I believe there's a God? Why should I believe God gave the Torah to the Jewish people? Why should I believe that the oral Torah is legit and relevant? And what difference does this all make anyway? And and this is what we have to do, I think. We have to go on our lech lecha. We have to go on our search to figure out what is true, because what's more important to figure out in life than what is reality, than what it's all about, right? Because you have people, you can have a group of people sitting around, all of them with a different belief system. This one, could you have a religious Jew, religious Christian, religious Muslim, religious Nazi, religious atheist? That's a religion to a belief system as well, right? And they can all have certain things that they agree upon and disagree upon. And you could find someone, though. Imagine you find someone in that circle of people and they literally don't agree. You can find people that literally don't agree with any points that certain other people have to make. However, if they're all realists, they should all agree on one fundamental thing, and that is that there is nothing more important than to figure out one way or the other. There's nothing more important than to figure out what is reality in the world, because everything else will then be based on that fundamental core truth, right? That's going to determine, hopefully, we're all not perfect, right? We all have to work on ourselves, but I'm gonna be taking that hopefully into account in my life and making choices based on that. I'm gonna make choices based on the direction of my life, where I'm gonna go, who I'm gonna be with, who I'm gonna marry, how I'm gonna raise my kids. Everything is going to have to do with, okay, what do I believe is actually true in this world? That's gonna be a big determinant in terms of my life goes one way, or if my life goes in a radically different way. And so this, I think, for many people needs to be a starting point, especially for coming to things from a rationally sound perspective. So this is where we begin. And I think that's a good place to begin this conversation. Now, before we start, though, I do want to mention our sponsor here. Hold on one second. Okay, I do want to mention our sponsor that this talk is in honor of Yoel ben Miriam, David Dov ben Toba, Kayla Rivka ben Esther, Sarah, and Leah Esther bat Yehudit Shmuela. They should all have much success and elevation and good things, and whatever it is that they're looking for. So, and any kind of elevations that they need. So let's get into it, my friends. Let's get into it. I think the conversation begins, if you want to begin this conversation of Judaism, Jewish philosophy, Torah, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, I think the conversation begins with your average Joe walking down the street. So imagine you've had average Joe walking down the street and they saw a table right there in the middle of the street. So if you were to ask average Joe, where does this table come from? What are some possible answers average Joe might give you? Feel free to put something in the chat there, my friends. That's your cue. Little Zoom participation here. Okay, all sorts of things they might say. They might say it fell off the back of a truck. They might say it came from IKEA. They might say it was made in China. All sorts of possibilities. What average Joe, it came from a store, it came from a factory, whatever it might be. Average Joe, all sorts of possibilities he might answer, but what average Joe is not going to say, he's not going to say, thank you, Rhonda, exactly. Someone put it there. What average Joe is not going to say, he's not going to say, oh, the table just popped out of nowhere, right? Why? Because the table is something that is in the finite. The table is something that is in time and space, and everything in time and space, we can know two things about it. We can know, number one, from nothing, nothing comes. And number two, nothing finite can create itself, right? So the table cannot pop out of nowhere, and the table cannot bring itself into existence. Yeah? Okay, so let's take something else that is finite. Let us take Rebbitzin Halu. You're going to help me out on this one? All right. You know what? I don't want to bother you. Let's just say your average person. If you were to ask your average person, okay, I see you're also getting distracted over there. You have someone next to yourself. If you were to ask your average person, okay, are you, here, where we at? Oh, Violet. What was that rule for the first? You're going to hear it a few more times. From nothing, nothing comes. All right, Violet, you're going to play. You're going to play here today, okay? Violet, you ready? Okay. Because here's the thing. The truth is, anything in the finite, these two rules apply, right? So that means then that I can know two things about Violet, right? Violet, are you in the finite? Yeah, certainly the side of you that we see here on Zoom is in the finite, right? It's in time and is in space. There you are. Dun, 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 dun. So that means I can know two things about you. I can know, number one, from nothing, nothing comes. Number two, nothing finite can create itself. So it means it's not a matter of faith or belief, but I can know just by looking at Violet that she has or had parents. Yes? Right? Or she created in a lab by some scientists, or maybe she's a test tube baby. Okay, all sorts of possibilities. Let's just assume for now that she has or had parents, right? Now those parents, are they in the finite? Are they in time and space? Yeah, they're also in time and space, at least physically. The physical side of them is in time and space, which means I can know two things about them. Number one, from nothing, nothing comes. Number two, nothing finite can create itself. Exactly, as I said, so physically, yes, and we're talking just on the physical side for a moment, right? So that means I can know just by looking at Violet, though, that she has or had grandparents, right? Right. So let's say you take this all the way back, right, to the first person, or if you want to include evolution for now, the first monkey, the first ape-like being, the first amoeba, the first cell, the first gas, that first finite thing so small you need a super duper microscope in order to see it. And imagine if we were to ask you that thing, so where does it come from? So again, it might be super duper microscopic. I might not be able to see it with my eyeball, but still it is in the finite. Still it is within the realm of time and space, which again means I can know two things about it. I can know from nothing, nothing comes. Nothing finite can create itself. So it's not a matter of faith or belief, but the idea is that I can know that there can be no other logical alternative other than the idea that there's something that's outside the laws of the finite, something that's outside the laws of time and space, which created time and space and that which is in it, right? And that's what we call, in one word, the infinite. The infinite. Let's be clear what we're saying. We're saying nothing more than what it's not. Infinite, that which is not finite, that which is beyond limitations of time and space, right? And of course, in Judaism, we have a word for this. We call this God, right? G to the dash to the Z. So Hashem, whatever, it's all just different words for the same concept, right? What we're talking about here is what's called in Kabbalah the Ein Sof, the infinite, right? And so now here's the big question, right? Because, the idea of God, anyone who wants to be purely realist and just go with what the physical world has shows us, the physical world points us in the direction of something beyond the physical, right? So that we got to in about 4.5 minutes. The bigger question is, who really cares anyway? So what? What difference does this make in my life? And so let's see what, what, right? And what did, and this infinite being, what did the infinite being even put us here for? With a brain to figure out that he, she, it exists, right? So I think about it. What can you do for the infinite being? All right, that is the correct answer. There is nothing you can do for the infinite being. Very good. So next question is, meaning to say there's no change you're going to make in the infinite, right? If you pray to God, is God now infinite plus one? No, right? So the next question becomes, all right, if there's nothing that God's going to quote unquote get out of the deal, next question is, what can I get out of the deal? Nose need the infinite being. I don't know what your nose needs the infinite being. I don't know. I think there's a typo over there. We, yes. There you go. So that's the whole point, right? Next thing is that, well, the next question is, before we get to us and needing God, let's also talk about let's get a little even more selfish about it to a certain extent. And say, all right, hold on a second. God's not going to get anything out of it. What can I get out of it, right? So let's see. What is it that people want? What is it that people are after? What is it that at the core of all of the decisions that we make? Anybody know? All right. So let's see. What is it? I mean, some people it's going to be money. Some people it's going to be love. Some people it's going to be our continued existence depends on Him. Truth. So, but what is it that we're looking? What is it that is at the core of all the decisions that we make? Right. So we see there are all sorts of different things that people base their decisions on. The one that sometimes people share, which I personally like, is happiness. Happiness. There you go, Rhonda. Nice one. Why do I like that one? Because that is the all-inclusive answer, right? That really, people want love because it's going to bring them happiness. People want money because they think that's going to bring them happiness. Health is half happiness, half the avoidance of pain and suffering, right? Which is also the flip side of all of this, right? Some people talk about sometimes answer survival. So that's the flip side, but it's the same two sides of the same coin, right? So really, everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. The most comes to be seen. Well, the next question is, okay, so what's the most available, right? If I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, then the next question becomes, what's out there? So we take a look around the world and we see that there's all sorts of pleasure, joy, happiness options out there. You got sex, drugs, rock and roll, but what do those all have in common? Drum roll. They're all within the finite, right? They're all temporary, they're all physical, even rock and roll dies, right? So you have a high from these things, but then you come down from these things, right? So then the next question is, all right, those are cool, but is there anything that goes beyond those limitations? Anything that goes beyond the physical and the temporary? Anything that goes beyond the finite? Perhaps something we've mentioned already. The infinite, right? And this is the Jewish idea. The Jewish idea is, look, I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, and the most is going to be to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation, connection with the infinite. And let's be clear what we're saying. What we are not saying, let's be clear, right, spirituality. What we are not saying is, we're not saying I'm going to chuck the finite for the sake of the infinite. No. We're not saying that. We're saying, look, we want to get the most pleasure and happiness out of life. That means I want to get the spiritual and I want to get the physical. I want to get the infinite and I want to get the finite. The only time I'm going to pass up on any kind of pleasure, joy, happiness out of life is if by my partaking in the lower finite pleasures, it will come in the way or block my access to the higher infinite. In that particular case, I will forgo the finite for the sake of it not blocking my access to the infinite, right? Let's just be clear. That's a lot of words I just said, but the truth is that that's how we make decisions in life all the time. All the time we're looking, if we ever want to strengthen ourselves over ourselves, to choose something higher, it often entails us putting aside the thing that is more immediate, more base, and quote unquote lower, right? Let me give you a good example. Imagine you have a guy, big man on campus, right, with a different young lady every night, and he's living this life for a few years, and he's all the physical pain is involved with is fun and dandy, but we catch up with him after a few years of this, and he decides after a few years he wants to build a loving, committed relationship with a particular young lady. And so can you hear the idea that in order for big man to build loving, committed relationship, can you hear the idea that entails him forgoing a whole lot of the physical pleasure he's been involved with up until that point, right? Like typically, if he would continue with that big man on campus lifestyle, can you hear the idea that will probably undermine loving, committed relationship in most cases, right? And so fast forward 10 years down the road, now we catch up with big man again, but now he's married, he's got a couple of kids, but we find him leaving his wife and kids in a tearful goodbye temporarily to go halfway across the world to go fight for a cause that he believes in. Perhaps he's going to a war that he thinks is necessary and just. Perhaps he is going to search for a cure to a disease halfway around the world. Whatever it might be, can you hear the idea that in order for him to do this more grander, more meaningful thing, this more worldly pursuit, it entails him forgoing the 9-to-5 lifestyle he's been involved with up until that point, right? Clearly, if he would continue with 9-to-5 lifestyle, that would undermine the worldly pursuit he's trying to do halfway around the world, right? Okay, so all that Judaism is saying is, look, at the top of this list is going to be to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation with the infinite, right? And so the next question becomes, all right, if I want to get the most joy, pleasure, happiness out of life, and the most is going to be to build and facilitate that relationship with the infinite, the next question is, well, how do I do that, right? And so here's where I'd like to call upon the Kabbalists to bring a little bit into this, a little bit of Kabbalistic insight. And that is something I've mentioned to you guys before, and that is one of the teachings of Kabbalah. We know, by the way, Kabbalah is simply the deeper teachings about Judaism and Torah and the world that have been passed down by, from the teacher to a student, right? Kabbalah is from the word lekabel, which means to receive, because we were receiving those deeper teachings from beyond ourselves. Now, however, another idea about what Kabbalah means, a related idea about what Kabbalah is all about, is also from the Hebrew word Kabbalah. Related to the Hebrew word Kabbalah is the Hebrew word makbil, same root letters there, same root letters. So makbil in Hebrew means parallel. I should say in English means parallel. The word makbil means parallel because one of the foundational principles of all Kabbalistic thought is that everything here in the physical world is a parallel to a deeper spiritual reality. And that means then, if I want to understand about certain things in the spiritual, I can understand, if I understand how this physical world works, I should be able, if I understand with the proper wisdom, I should be able to pull out principles about how this world works and to take those principles and apply them to the spiritual, because the only reason why this world works the way it works is because it is a parallel and a projection of that which is going on spiritually. So, practically for our conversation, if I'm talking about I want to build a relationship with the infinite, I can look at principles about relationships in my own life here in the physical world, in my interpersonal relationships. And if I understand them with the proper wisdom, I should be able to pull out principles about how relationships operate and apply them to my relationship with the infinite. Because the only reason why my relationships in my own life work the way they work is because they are a parallel of my ultimate relationship, my ultimate match made in heaven, my relationship with the infinite. So that's what we're going to do right now. I want to go through just two principles with you today. I think just two, we'll see. I want to go through two principles with you today about about relationships, and we will go through and see how they play out in our lives on an interpersonal level. We'll pull out principles. We'll show these principles, we'll develop them, and then we'll see how they also are very much at play and at work in our relationship with the infinite. All right? Okay, so are you ready? I can't hear you. Are you ready? Can I get a yeah, yeah, yeah? Okay, that was enthusiastic. Here goes. Principle number 1 of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. Let me say that one more time. In any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. If you did not understand what the heck I just said, that's cool. Stick with me for the next few minutes. We will come back to that phrase, and I promise you, God willing, it will make perfect sense. Okay, here goes. For example, can you think of a relationship that you did not choose? Right? Gut response, most people, is parents. Right? And that's exactly why in a healthy situation, and everything we're talking about today, we're talking healthy situation. Okay? That's exactly why in a healthy situation, the parents are going to love the kids more than the kids love the parents, right? Because when that kid is born, again, healthy situation, what do the parents do for the kid? Answer, everything. What is the kid consciously doing for the parents? Answer, nothing. And so at first it would seem like, hold on a second, the kid's getting everything, the parents giving everything. So you think that the kid should love the parents more than the parents love the kid. The kid's getting everything, the parents getting nothing. The kid's receiving, the parents giving. You think that the kid would be pretty, would be, the love would be more with the kid. However, Judaism teaches, and the truth is, anyone who knows anything about relationships and psychology should be able to pick this one up as well, that our true feelings of love are built through giving of self, extending of ourselves towards another, getting out of yourself and pointing that energy towards somebody else is what builds love. And so Rhonda, was that Rhonda? What's her name? Whoever that is over there keeps popping up the message. It wants me to tell you that the word for love in Hebrew is Ahava. And the root letters of the word Ahava are the word Hav, which is a biblical word meaning to give, because giving is at the root of loving, and love is an expression of giving. And if you've ever been to a Judaism class, they told you this little teaching, so I'm not going to bore you to death with it. Now, here's the thing, though. Fast forward 20 years down the road. Yeah, absolutely, Miriam, yes. Fast forward 20 years down the road or so, right? And now we catch up with 20 years, maybe 25, 30, you catch up with someone and you ask them this question, right? If you ask them, imagine you ask your average person the question of, would they like to get married at some point? So average single. So of course, some people nowadays would say no, but in general, most people will still answer that yes, at some point they'd like to get married. So then usually what I'll say to them is that like, oh really? Because that really seems to not make any sense. Because if you think about it, right? If I were to ask them again, healthy situation, growing up, did the parents feed you? So, they say yes. And then I ask, well, growing up, did the parents clothe you? Answer, yes. Growing up, did the parents put a roof over your head? Yes. And so this is usually when I ask, well, hold on a second, this doesn't make any sense. Do you ever do anything to piss those people off? And they say, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe I ever make anyone cry. Yeah, I made them cry a few number of times. Okay, after this episode, after you upset them, did they still feed you? Yeah. They still clothe you? Yeah. Do they still put a roof over your head? Yeah. Sounds like they got a very, very sweet deal going over there, right? It doesn't. So then, if you think about it, someone who says that they are looking at some point to get married, they're essentially saying that they're going to transition from the relationship with their parents as the primary relationship of their life to a relationship with some spouse, where if you say to the spouse what you said to your mother, you're going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble. Isn't that true? Of course it is. Right, so the question then becomes, all right, so why do we want to make this move? Why do we want to make this transition? Right? And so the answer to that question is that the relationship between the parents versus the relationship with the parents versus the relationship with the spouse, of course, is very, very different. And at the root of it, and by the way, let's just be clear, leaving the obvious physical reasons aside, and leaving also societal conditioning aside, why is it that we make this move to move from the relationship with the parents as primary in our life to the relationship with the spouse or guy, gal, or whatever it is, romantic relationship as primary relationship in our life? Just lovey-dovey wise, emotionally wise. That's what I'm asking the question about. And so it comes out that if you think about it, the relationship with the parents, again, assuming all is healthy, the relationship with the parents is so stable. It's almost like it's not even there, right? You do something good in the relationship with the parents, you get result X. You do something bad in the relationship with the parents, you still basically get result X, right? That person is still getting taken care of after they upset the parents, right? At some point we grow up though. We become more mature, we become more independent, and this relationship starts to make us a little bit sick. Where is the me in the relationship? And so we transition from the inherent stability of a relationship with the parents to the inherent delicacy of the relationship with the spouse, where if you do something good, whoo, relationship's going through the roof. But if you do something bad, that relationship's going to hell in a handbasket real quick, right? And so, you know, we desire that the independence that opens the door for that higher experience and feeling and connection, right, and relationship, right? That more elevated relationship, that more refined, choice-based relationship. Here's the crazy thing, though. Some people still say they want stability, right? You ever have anyone say, I want to have a stable relationship with you? Perhaps you said that to somebody, right? Imagine gal comes over to guy, and yes, I'm being stereotypical here. Yes, I'm generalizing. You know why we call them generalizations? Because they're generally true. Not always, but generally they are. So imagine you have some gal comes up, gal says to the guy, I want a stable relationship with you. Is she saying to the guy, I want a relationship with you like I have with my parents? No. Very good, Vivian. What she's saying is, look, I want to take this inherently delicate relationship with you. I want to take this relationship where there is a real pull, opportunity, desire to go the other way, to make choices against the relationship that will bring down and destroy the relationship. And nevertheless, I want for each of us to go ahead and make choices towards one another when there is a real opportunity and possibility that we'll do something that'll mess things up, that will destroy the relationship. Nevertheless, we should each strengthen ourselves over ourselves to choose towards that other, towards that commitment, towards that relationship, and then do it again next, the next day, then do it again the next week, then do it again the next year, then do it again the next decade, and ultimately, continuously, as we live in that space where there's a real opportunity to go the other way, and nevertheless we strengthen ourselves over ourselves to choose towards that person and towards what they care about, and taking them into account and being real about them and having a real authentic relationship with them based on what they care about. And also, of course, being real with yourself as well, not losing yourself in the whole thing either. Right? But to the extent you choose towards that other person in that situation, you take that inherently delicate relationship and you build it into a stable relationship. But that stability is real. That stability is yours. That stability is based on the sum total of the real choices you made, even in an opportunity and situation where you could have gone the other way. That stability of that relationship is totally different than the stability of the relationship with the parents. The stability of the relationship with the parents is essentially just given to you. And you can't really be given a true, higher, refined relationship, right? And so this is principle number one of relationships I want to share with you. That in any relationship, the quality of the relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. Only when you have a real ability to make a choice that will destroy the relationship, only then when you go ahead and choose towards the relationship is that choice a real choice, right? And This begins to explain, according to Judaism, the necessity for free will. Only when you have the real free will capacity to make a choice that will destroy your relationship with the infinite, only then when you go ahead and choose towards that relationship, is that choice a real choice? Only then can you access this higher level of spouse-like relationship with the infinite. And that's what we're really after in Judaism. Surprise, surprise. I know that's a bombshell for some people. But the truth is, what we're really after in Judaism is that choice-based, refined, spouse-like relationship with the infinite. Yes, there's talk about God as a parent, but that is the fallback position, right? Ever heard that line with I think the Christians say, right? Forgive me, Father, if I've sinned, right? When we, where'd they get that from, by the way? When we when we mess up, so then yes, we ask God to just like a parent, we ask God to go ahead and to be right. We take on that God is a parent paradigm, right? But really, what we're after is building that higher, more refined relationship with the infinite that is choice-based. And I will prove it to you further, right? If you think about it, when is, for those who have a little bit more Jewish background that are on the line right now, when is considered to be the heyday of Judaism? The time where the Jewish people were at the highest level as a nation, as a people. There are two possible answers you can give me. Go ahead, anybody? You got to type it in, Rivka. They're not going to let you chime in. I think it's shut down. Tov, so I'll tell you, since people are too lazy to type. There you go, matan. And the next word is, drum roll, Torah. Nailed it. Okay. So that's right. So first and foremost, it's the time when the Jewish people got the Torah. Now, what is that considered? What is that compared to in the Jewish sources? That is compared to a wedding, right? The holiday of Shavuot we just had. And it's a time that we dress up the house in all sorts of greenery, because whatever we make it like there was God set up a canopy for the Jewish people. There's a whole concept like that. God gives something of value to the Jews. The Jews receive it, and then they are one and they are connected. And so similarly at a wedding, that's exactly what we do, right? Man gives something of value, usually a ring, to the woman. The woman receives it. They're married. Okay, so there's many other examples of this as well. But point being that the heyday of Judaism is not talking about relationship of parent to child. It's compared to husband and wife, right? And by the way, another example for this also, a person, instead of saying Matan Torah, you also could have said the times of the Beit HaMikdash. If you look at, in the commentaries of the times of the Beit HaMikdash, when it talks about the Beit HaMikdash in the commentaries, it compares what is the Beit HaMikdash all about? It's all about how do we take that Sinai experience, package it, and live with it. That's what the Beit HaMikdash is all about, right? So again, Sinai experience, concept of a marriage, right? In the temple there, okay, so they don't have to go into the details. But point is that this is what it's all about, right? And so by the way, you see right at the beginning of the Torah that both of these relationships, the relationship with the parent, the relationship with the spouse, are both kind of referred to at the beginning of the Torah as well, right? What does God do? Sorry, let me say that again. What does Adam do to deserve being put in the Garden of Eden? That is correct, nothing, right? That's God as a parent. God the parent says, hey man, you're my kid, I want you to have it all. Puts him in paradise, and there's nothing he even had to do for it. But God says, when it comes to the husband-wife, spouse-like relationship with me, that you have to choose it. This tree, not that tree, right? And so this is really what it's all about. And so this is the point. Principle number one of relationships is that in any relationship, the quality of relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it, okay? Now, principle number two of relationships for today. We have time? Where are we at? Okay, fine. Principle number two of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the level of the relationship depends on the quote-unquote lower of the two in the relationship. Let me say that one more time. In any relationship, the relationship depends on the level of the relationship depends on the quote-unquote lower of the two in the relationship. Let me give you an example of what I mean, right? Imagine here we are. Lighthouse. Lighthouse project, right? And imagine we're all not just in virtual reality together, but we're actually in reality, to physical reality together. Imagine we all meet up and, we like to have a little l'chaim. So you know how it is, 1 l'chaim, 2 l'chaim, 3 l'chaim floor, and everyone is loosened up quite a bit. And imagine at that point, one person in here, should we embarrass some people? Let's do it. Rivka will for sure be one of them. And there was a dude named Alan on here. All right, I don't even know. Maybe he's married. Fine, he's not here anymore. Anyway, a guy named Joe stumbles over to Rebecca and says, Rebecca, you're amazing. You're incredible. I love you. Let's get hitched. And Rebecca at that point turns back to Joe and says, Joe, actually, I can't stand you. You drive me crazy. I never want to see you again. All right, so here we are, Joe, 100% totally in love with Rebecca. Rebecca, 0% wants nothing to do with Joe. My friends, where is this relationship at? That's correct, 0. Going nowhere fast, right? Because Joe could be totally in love, but it's not a loving relationship, right? Because relationship is only as strong as the one who wants it least. It's a two-way street. So it's only as strong as the one who wants it least. And so this is the idea that in any relationship, the level of the relationship is going to depend on the lower of the two, by the lower of the two in the relationship. Right now, here's the crazy thing, though. If you take this principle and you carry it over to our relationship with the infinite, you get an awe-inspiring yet empowering idea. And that is, right, God, infinite being, infinite giver, constantly giving us opportunity after opportunity to have the relationship with him, right? Question then becomes, how much do we choose back to God? How much do we choose back to the infinite? To the extent we choose back to God, that's the extent the relationship is going to be there. To the extent not, where simply, the relationship is simply just not going to be there. And that's the thing. People like to talk about these different, examples of what we mean by relationship with God. Like heaven and hell. People talk about these places, heaven and hell, and certain Kabbalists say it's like the same place, just a revelation of reality, and your place in it, given the potential that you had and the choices that you made, right? And so much better, like people like talk about, like people like, give these ways of thinking about having like some treasure chest at the end of a rainbow, or like a basketball trophy at the end of a season, Much better way, I think, though, of thinking about it is like this. It's like a 50th wedding anniversary. Imagine you're at a 50th wedding anniversary, and you look there at the head of the table, you see the guy and the gal, the husband and the wife, and they look into each other's eyes, and it's like there's fireworks in the background, right? But can you hear the idea that the love that each one is experiencing in the moment is simply the experience of the sum total of the choices that each one made towards the other, minus the missed opportunities and the times they chose against each other, thereby building a conceptual wall between the two of them, right? Nothing more, nothing less, right? And so this is the idea that in our relationship with the infinite, in our relationship with the infinite, the level of the relationship depends on the quote unquote lower of the two in the relationship. And in our relationship with the infinite, the lower of the two is us. And so then the next question becomes, all right, so then if I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, and the most is going to be to build and facilitate that relationship with the infinite, and I understand that in any relationship, the level of relationship is determined by the lower of the two in the relationship. And in my relationship with the infinite, the lower of the two is me. So my next question is, all right, so then how am I going to raise the bar of the relationship? So this is where the concept of Torah comes in. That what do we mean by Torah? Of course, in one word, Torah is from the Hebrew word mora. Well, they're from the same root word, which is hora'ah. Mora is teacher. Torah is teachings. Teachings for what? Teachings for life. What's life all about? Well, everyone wants to get the most joy, pleasure, happiness out of life. What's the most available? To build that relationship with the infinite. So Torah is going to be those teachings about how to build that relationship with the infinite. And the truth is that every relationship you'll ever have in your life has a Torah, has a teachings, an instruction book, a teachings about how that relationship works. Idiot's Guide to Relationship with Person X. We have many, many Torahs in our lives, right? And so that means to say that in my relationship with my wife, there is a Torah of our relationship. Now, some things in the Torah, there are certain things that do this and it'll be better for the relationship. There's other things that thou shalt not do that. Don't do that, and it will, because it would be bad for the relationship. And sometimes I understand why it works this way, and then there's other times, based on who I am, based on who she is, which I don't understand. Maybe you can help me. Right? So, for example, in my relationship with my wife, in the Torah of my relationship with my wife, there is a commandment which states, "Thou shalt come home with a smile on your face and chocolates and jewelry and flowers. It will be good for your relationship with your wife." Okay, got that. I understand that one. "Thou shalt not come back yelling and screaming. It will be bad for the relationship." Okay, I understand that one too. But then there's other ones based on who I am, based on who she is, which I don't really understand. Right? For example, there is a commandment in my relationship with my wife, which states, "Thou shalt not squeeze the toothpaste from anywhere other than the end of the tube." Now, I don't understand. It's the same amount of toothpaste either way. Okay, you want to make sure you get it all out. Beseder at the end, when you get it, when you're ready to finish it, so like you could still go from the bottom and push it all out. So perhaps, so I don't really understand, but I have learned that it would be better in my relationship with my wife if I just squeeze the toothpaste from the end of the tube. So, now, of course, this is a ridiculous example, but to make a point, right? Which is that even in our lifelong lovey-dovey, married to the person for 70 years, partner in life, all that stuff, even there, human being standing right in front of your face, even there are certain things that I'm going to understand why it works the way it works in my relationship with her or with him, whatever it is. And then there's other things which at first I won't understand, but with the proper counseling and therapy and conversations and consultations, maybe I'll understand a little more. And then there's those other things based on who I am, based on who she is, just never going to understand them. And that's with somebody who's you could be living with them for 70 years, life partner, lovey-dovey. Well, that's how it is. Human being, flesh and blood, standing in front of you. Doesn't matter. That's how it is. All the more so that that's going to apply to our relationship with the infinite, right? That there too, there are going to be certain things. Maybe I can gain a little understanding. And then there's going to be other things which are totally obviously beyond our understanding. But every relationship works that way. And so this is what the idea, right? That when we talk about building our relationship with the infinite, right? First and foremost, right? That the conversation today was establishing the concept of the infinite, and then also what is our life about? Why do we care? Why? What difference does it make that there's this infinite being? What difference does that make in my life? Obviously it means that we ought to be infinite focused, right? There's nothing more important that's out there. And we see that this is the concept of what the Torah is all about, which is outlining the path by which we build that relationship with the infinite. So then the next question is going to be, all right, so like, what about like the authenticity of it? How do I know? Or let's put it better, that's not fair. How do I know is too much? Why should I believe that God gave the Torah to the Jewish people? So that is going to be the topic, God willing, for next week. Okay, my friends, I thank you for joining me. I hope this is worth your time. And if anyone has any questions, you can reach out. For those of you who have my info, elitethejew@gmail.com. And hopefully we'll see each other next week.